Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Michael Kahn, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Melby Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Samson, Maris, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, Maria Nealands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Fireball X, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is on Discord and G+, so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Now, he's saying names of guys that I heard of in the neighborhood, you know, so I kind of want to legitimize him, but then you got other people, because he was in Gotti's crew, but he was very young.
You're arguing within the whole idea of, first you said, I can't believe, and now we're arguing the stories in the I can't believe.
Well,
No,
guys say things.
No, I know. My point is, why do they even have a show?
Well, because there's always been a fascination with that. You know that. That's why the movies do so good all the time. People are fascinated, and I wonder why. Maybe it's the God aspect. Like you feel like God because these people take somebody's life, and maybe that's like a God complex. Like because only God can really take a life and give a life. Maybe they got this God fearing thing, complex thing.
I don't understand what you mean by that.
Well, it's like, why are people fascinated with it? Why does it do so well in the movies? All of these things about mafia guys.
I attribute that to our sin nature.
Yeah. But is there a part of it where people look at these people and they, I don't want to say admire, or maybe a little at awe of them because they do take lives? I don't know what I'm trying to say.
No, there's definitely a fascination. I get what you're saying.
Anyway, the guy that I kind of like because he's from my old neighborhood is Michael Francis. And he opened up these pizza places called Slices. They're all over, they're going to be all over California. I think he's got about 4 or 5 of them now. I mean, he's legitimate now. But I was wondering if you heard of the pizza place called Slices.
No, not me. I don't get out much. I'm just so happy where we are today with the flat earth debates in the sense of the ballers chasing their tail now.
Oh, yeah, it's over. I mean, it's been over for a while. Now we're just hammering them down.
Yeah, and I think it was an astute recognition that they're anti-flat earthers versus ballers. So that's really resonated in the last week.
I think that's the most brilliant thing Nathan came up with.
Yeah, I mean, he recognized it, so that was good. Because their arguments, all their arguments changed.
Yeah, but
in the way that they argue now.
The only bad thing is my son falls under that anti-flat earther thing. He
Temporarily for the
knows.
moment.
Yeah, for the moment.
Temporarily for the moment.
But he knows about, he can't get around, he can't get around the geometric horizon. He knows math. It's all right there for him. So what does he do? He denies the picture in the video.
It's much easier than that. You have an instrument called the sextant. The sextant, no one even argues with. Even the ballers can't argue with the sextant. It is so obvious that the sextant works that it's still being used today as a backup to the computerized version of GPS and all that stuff that they have from triangulation and datums, etc. Anyway, back to the sextant. Sextant works. Well, why does it work? Because it does. Okay. Well, then it in itself, by working, proves what surface that it's being used from. It validates the location in which it's working. So that's what drove me right away. Once I said, wait a minute, since the sextant works, it got to work on a flat plane or it's got to work on the globe Earth. It's because it works. So can I reverse engineer the sextant? Go study how it works. What's necessary for it to work? How could it? What's the only way it could work? You know, I asked these questions and started researching myself. And so the whole point was, since it works, let's reverse engineer it and see what are the parameters of it working and what would cause it not to work. It destroys the ball because number one, you got to have sunlight come in parallel. It's over right there. Right there, if you're going to cut the legs off, the ballers or anti-flat earthers, you just show the sunlight the way it comes in. It's over right there. That's the quickest way to kill the ball because it's divergent, corpuscular rays. It can't work unless it's parallel. So that's the cutting them at the knees argument. Then if you want to go into the geometry of it all, then that's what I've been showing as well, which is they need the center of the Earth, what they're taking it from the surface. And so that's an assumption. It's not really what they're doing. What they're doing is they're on the surface. Now let's see what that surface has to be. Could that surface have a curved baseline? And can you get an angle from a curved baseline? Well, bye-bye. You can't get an angle unless you have two straight lines creating a corner. So it's over there as well. So it's over in two places, but it's really over because of the sunlight.
I agree. And as you're explaining it, I just get the whole picture in my head. So I agree.
Yeah, it's just done. You'd have to throw away every protractor. You'd have to throw away every building concept of level in order to fight this argument. Plus, you got water that doesn't curve, and its properties always find level when it's undisturbed.
I put out a series of videos with your presentations as the main bulk of the video. I didn't actually ask if you A, got to see them, or B, approved, liked them, etc.
I missed your first part. I heard the last part. What'd you say at the beginning?
I put out a series of videos. Some were
okay.
shorts, some were trailer length, 3 minutes or less, and some were full length videos, all on the subject of the sextant proving flat Earth. I just didn't know if you'd seen them or if you approved of them if you had, or if you liked them, didn't like them, would prefer I'd done more or less, whatever.
No, I think if it's the ones that you did within the last week and a half, I saw them. They were fine. Obviously, I'm talking, so I would have to critique what I'm saying. Did I say it right? It'd be more on me than you. But yeah, share it far and wide. I mean,
Just fine.
it's devastating.
Let me get it
It's
straight.
devastating for them.
Probably 10, maybe 12 hours of accumulated work. Just fine. Saying anti-flat earthers, best thing I've ever done, apparently.
It is. It is great. It is a great distinction that you noticed, because I think you got it based on their arguments when they started strawmanning us.
That's not what I meant anyway.
I know, I'm just messing with you, Neil. Thank you for the compliment.
So,
No problem, Wiseman.
Wiseman. I'm going to throw some slides your way for the pre-show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 or more slides. Let me get them on, and I'd like to comment on it when you're ready, okay?
What now?
Yeah, if
sure.
you don't have anything else to talk about.
Has to be.
Yeah. Let me just give me one minute to do it.
Oh, okay.
I'll be back.
Yeah, fine.
I also like the distinction that you've made, Nathan, with these the anti-flat earther and the glober, because it's someone who refuses to hear or acknowledge the arguments properly. Yeah, I think it's a good distinction you've made.
No, Jesse.
Thanks. Hey, Owen.
Hello.
A bit early today.
What's up?
Hi.
Hello?
Hello, Owen. Can you not hear us?
Yes, I could, but then nothing happened, so...
That's because I'm watching documents come in from 10th Man on Skype, and I'm about to ask him which one he wants first.
And I'm working.
Yeah.
Hi, Owen.
Let me know when you're ready. Hey, Armin.
Yeah, which one do you want first? The first?
The one that says Earth's circumference, Eratosthenes, astronomy, solstices. You ready?
I am.
Okay, so this is I'm just going to read it because you could see the fallacy within the whole paper this guy wrote. Eratosthenes, a Greek geographer, about 276, 194 BC, made a surprisingly accurate estimate of Earth's circumference. In the Great Library of Alexandria, Egypt, he read that there was a deep vertical well near Siam in southern Egypt that was entirely lit to the bottom of the well by the sun at noon once a year, summer solstice. Eratosthenes understood if the sun is directly overhead, its rays would shine straight down into the well and light the bottom. Solstice is either of 2 times in a year, the summer solstice and the winter solstice. A solstice is when the sun is at its highest or lowest point in the sky at noon, which makes the longest and shortest days, about June 22nd and December 20th, caused by the sun's motion being the longest or shortest path across the sky. The Tropic of Cancer is north of the equator at 23 degrees plus latitude. It is the latitude where once a year the sun is directly overhead on the summer solstice. The Tropic of Capricorn is south of the equator at 23.43 latitude. It is the latitude where once a year the sun is directly overhead in the winter solstice. Equinox is a day twice each year when the sun crosses the celestial equator, when day and night are of equal length, about September 22nd and March 20th. Eratosthenes understood the movement of the sun across the sky. He knew in Alexandria, Egypt, the sun was not directly overhead at noon on summer solstice because vertical objects there cast a shadow. He knew that Alexandria was 5,000 stadius, almost due north of Siam. It's about 500 miles. 5,000 stadius, I'm sorry. That's today's equivalent of 500 miles. Egypt, and he understood enough geometry, this is the killer, to reason he could use this information to calculate the circumference of the Earth. Assumptions. He assumed the Earth was round. Sorry, Columbus, in parentheses. The sun's rays traveled in a straight line, and the rays, both places were essentially parallel. Notice the title, Assumptions, and he assumed. Data, as we continue. He set up a vertical post at Alexandria and measured the angle of its shadow at summer solstice, 7.2 degrees. When the well at Cyan was completely sunlit, which meant the sun was vertically over the well, and there's a diagram there, as you can see. Reasoning. From geometry, Eratosthenes knew the angle of the shadow at Cyan equaled the angle of the Earth's center. Why? Because he assumed it was a sphere to begin with. So it would have to have a center. Cyan and Alexandria. A line crossing parallel lines will have the same angles. I want to pause here for a minute. The whole thing is an assumption. And this statement here, a line crossing parallel lines will have the same angles. Sunlight kills the globe model. Sun rays, as they would have them, kills the globe model. The sun light must come in parallel for this whole thing to work. We know it comes in divergent. We know it's crepuscular rays. We know it's not 93 million miles away because they come in funny angles. This whole model, Nathan, has to have sunlight coming in parallel or it dies on the spot. So if you want to take them out at the knees, all you got to say is sunlight baby. If you want to destroy them even more, you use the sextant. Anyway, the arc of the angle, this size was therefore 1/50th of a circle of 360, which by the way was an assumption, 7.2 degrees of 50, based on 360 assumption of a round Earth, assumption. The distance between Cyan and Alexandria was 5,000 stadias. So he multiplied 5,000 by 50 to find Earth's circumference. The result was 250,000 stadias, about 250 kilometers. It's quite close to the modern measurement of 40,075 kilometers at the equator. And there you see another illustration of how the sunlight has to come to get the angle at the center to match the angle at the surface. The formula he used, and it goes on, 360 shadow angle vertical stick, distance from Cyan and Alexandria equals circumference of the Earth. Formula you can use to calculate circumference of the Earth, 360 shadow angle vertical stick, distance from Cyan equals circumference of the Earth. Cyan is located on or near the Tropic of Cancer, 23.5 north, where the sun would be overhead, summer solstice. Sun is directly overhead of the Tropic of Cancer, 23.5 north, overhead of the Tropic of Capricorn, 23.5 south, on the winter solstice, overhead of the equator, 0 degrees north, spring and fall of the equinoxes. Use these ideas to determine their circumference. On the summer solstice, place a vertical stick into the ground. When the sun reaches its highest vertical ascent for that day, solar noon, therefore the shadow length will be the shortest. Measure the angle of the shadow angle of the vertical stick, 360, shadow angle vertical stick. Distance from the Tropic of Cancer equals circumference of the Earth. All the equinox, the vertical rays of the sun are directly over the equator. How would you calculate the circumference of the Earth using the same method during the equinox? And then he gives you a little worksheet, and I'll end it there. Everything is an assumption, is a joke, and right in front of them, crepuscular rays, light coming in at funny angles destroys this whole paper.
Good stuff. Thank you very much.
You got it.
I had to pop you on mute,
Outstanding.
Paul. Sorry, because you were making a load of background noise. Can you hear us? Paul? Hello.
I'll put myself on mute. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I just sorted it out. The distraction meant we missed the second page. We only got it for a second or two. But there we go. Sorry.
So everything is an assumption.
Every claim to be proof of a sphere starts with the assumption Earth's a sphere.
Brilliant. Just brilliant.
The modus tollens argument, or black swan argument, has been born out of necessity because of the brainwashing of the general masses in the Western world to the automatic assumption that Earth's a sphere. Therefore, when formulating a logical fallacy, it seems reasonable to your average Joe Normie to say, well, because Earth's a sphere, and then set out your example. It's not, it's fallacious reasoning. But when you point out that it's fallacious reasoning to assume your outcome, it's called begging the question. You, at the most extreme, will be told that you've made that fallacy up. At the best case scenario, you'll be told it's perfectly acceptable to beg the question of a sphere Earth because you already know. In other words, basically lay out what the fallacy actually entails as a justification for using that fallacy. It's okay to beg the question because I'm going to beg the question.
Do you know, at first I thought that girl was trying to say that you're using these fallacies in the wrong area. But then I realized she was actually thinking that you made it up, the whole thing.
I knew what she meant straight away. Yeah, I was very clear to make it clear on the recording, or live stream as it happened to be, what was going on. I just want to make it clear while you're Googling begging the question that you have claimed I have made up the fallacy of begging the question. Let's just get that clear while you Google it. It wasn't that she was claiming I'd made up a begging the question fallacy or claimed that she had used one incorrectly. She'd literally claimed I'd made that fallacy up. It didn't exist. It wasn't a fallacy. I'd just made up the words, according to her.
I couldn't believe it.
Give it a
I was like,
benefit
you
of
got to
the
get on
doubt.
the show.
Say again? The goalie, I think that was. I recognise the voice. Yes, it was.
Hey, yes. Yep. Sorry about that. I was just saying I couldn't believe she said that. I was like, you got to get on the show. She was in the Discord chat saying that stuff. I was like, please tell Nathan that.
I actually mistakenly credited Ryan for it. I just misheard him, and I thought it was him that baited her in. So I was like, oh yeah, it was you that baited her in. It wasn't. It was you, or Stagoli, that baited her into the chat. And I'm glad she did, because that's fairly typical. And the people who leave comments are fairly like that. They're blinkered to what's actually being said, and if they don't understand it, they don't concern themselves with it because they think somebody smarter somewhere has figured it out. So don't worry about it. They're still dumb flat earthers, regardless of whether or not I've got a comprehension of what they're laying down here. They're just dumb. So when there's a specific example that they say, I've never heard of begging the question, you've just made it up, I know you're dumb. It's like, okay, well, let's see how this goes.
Yeah, I love baiting the chat skanks, man.
Good. They represent the majority of people who come across this subject. In other words, they're the representation of the aftershock. Oh my God, people say it's flat. They hear something that maybe triggers them into saying, no, that can't be right. And then the next thing you know, they're a chat participant, chat skank, as you call them.
Well, I got that from QE. Chat skanks, that's a QE ism.
Yeah, it's very apt.
I was surprised you got her in. They usually do not come in.
They're compelled to. They want to tell us we're
Yeah,
dumb.
you can't push them too hard.
Oh, here we go. There's an act to it, eh? Gotta have the right
Do
bait.
explain,
Exactly.
because I have.
But I
to get
cut
to
you
bed.
off, sorry.
That's okay. I was just saying you've got to have the right bait. It's like fishing, like any kind of fishing, right?
Yeah, if you try to pull on the line too hard, they'll let go. So you just kind of gotta, tug a little bit,
Reel them on in. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you're currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning, one and all.
Hey, good morning.
How are you?
Very well, it's good to be here. Happy days all round. There's any actual globe heads in the Discord server this morning before I go through housekeeping? I'll take that as a firm no, right? There's 0 globe heads today in Discord for the housekeeping.
How about anti-flat earthers? Is there any of them?
Any anti-flat earthers in there? Clearly not. Okay, I mean, we've got 2 choices then, panel. We can either completely dispense with housekeeping for today and just carry on with the chit-chat we were having in the pre-show, or we can do it quick fire. What do you want to do?
I think we go quick fire.
Okay, let's do it. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
In the absence of globe heads and anti-flat earthers, I will say they have no courage to come and defend their model. And so the obvious answer is no evidence whatsoever.
Anyone else on Earth curve? Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Ditto. They're afraid to come in. We
Is
scared
there
them
any?
away.
No, not evidence of globe activity in Discord or on this show. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No,
None at
that's
all.
what I'm saying.
Alrighty then. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nope, not that
Nope.
either.
Only in the textbooks that say 93 million miles away, or 94, or 92. It's one of them.
Neil, why do you think they say that far? What's the premise for it?
Oh, it has to be unreachable, right?
No. What's the premise for it being 93 million miles away? What's the purpose of it?
The purpose of it, or why is it? What do you mean? I don't understand the question.
Why do they insist it's 93 million miles away?
Well, because they made an assumption of Venus being the same size as Earth, right? And then they measured from that point on.
So they need R.
Yeah, for their radius.
Okay, well, we
The
destroyed that
radius of
already.
Earth.
The black swan destroyed that already. So
Okie dokie. So let's ask that question. Any evidence of the R value? That'd be Earth radius.
No, but you're telling me that that's why they made the sun 93 million miles away? To come up with the radius?
No, when you're applying Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion, you can apply those scaling values to anything. You just need something to start the process off. So you don't necessarily have to have those values. You could have it a bit closer or a bit further away. And throughout history, it has changed. But the scaling is what's important. What you apply to it to give you a starting point for the scaling. Any more on the distance to the sun? Any more?
Yeah.
For any more?
Well, yeah. Yeah. They also need it far away because they have to assume light comes in parallel.
That's true too, as covered in the pre-show when we were pulling apart the assertions of a sphere Earth and the notion of a sextant, disproving that to the point where we can assert it proves we're on a flat surface. It wouldn't work unless we were. They don't have parallel light rays coming in. You only got to look at light coming through a cloud to know that's not the case. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
What is that? No, it's something that you pick up and you drop and it falls, and they say that's a magical force coming from the center of the earth pulling it. When you picked it up and dropped it, and it was absolutely fine on the table before you did anything. They want to attribute a force to that. Well, attribute it to my hand picking it up.
Right, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Anybody else? Well, in absence of that, no. All they have is limited to observation of something in the sky with a telescope, and that's it. No science applied to it. They can't manipulate it. They can't test it. They can't do anything. They can just do guesswork.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Negative.
Okay, any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Interestingly enough, I asked a friend of mine yesterday that I met for a late lunch about this question. And he said, well, isn't that atmospheric pressure? And I said, well, where'd you get pressure in the first place? And aren't you saying that the Earth with all this pressure is next to a huge vacuum of space? What's keeping it from filling that volume of the vacuum? What's the barrier there? He says, well, isn't it the atmospheric pressure itself? And I said, atmos air, sphere-shaped air doesn't exist. Gas molecules don't bond. They bounce off each other and any sides of any container, as you know, because you own a propane tank, and he did. And he says, oh, I get it. So it must be contained. And I go, to have pressure, it must be contained. And the heat of the day will excite the gases, and the cool of the night will calm them down a bit, but they're bouncing anyway.
Right. You ask how you can have gas pressure without a container when they claim there's a sky vacuum. And the answer they'll say is, well, doesn't sphere-shaped air solve that problem? What, you assuming that gas doesn't fill the availability of volume, in fact, arbitrarily takes the shape of a sphere by using this word air sphere or atmosphere? No, that doesn't solve the problem. Entropy is still a thing. It's a law of nature.
Yeah, I went to entropy, and interestingly enough, I said to him, well, what about the obvious nature of entropy? High pressure, low pressure, heat to cold. And his eyes rolled in his head. And he said, yeah, I get, I get what you're saying. I go, so that has to happen. Why isn't that happening?
Any evidence of a
Well, it's not-
self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
I think you asked that one.
I've already asked that. Well, then we've done with housekeeping, I think. That was quicker fire than I expected.
Yeah, and you know what? It's akin to someone calling someone I love names, and I don't stand up and defend them. Where are the ballers and anti-flat earthers right now? We just destroyed everything they live on.
I've got a few more people in now.
Missed the hypothesis question about cosmology and
Any viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
nope.
I did ask that. I asked all of them. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
you
sure
did.
I asked
You
all of
did
them.
ask that one too.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I only
Well,
know.
it's okay. You can ask it twice.
Yeah, I have done.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, they can't formulate a hypothesis. A few of them have figured that out recently, which makes me laugh because they come into the comments and they go, "You do realise you can't prove Earth's flat with science?" And we're like, "Yeah, we weren't claiming it was provable by way of science. We point out to you idiots that your claims of science can in no way be put through the scientific method, in spite of you labelling them science. We don't do that. But what, because we haven't labelled it science, we've just said, here's a demonstration of it being flat. Here's a logical consistency that shows we don't have any curvature. Because we do those sorts of things, you say, well, in those circumstances, I would be saying science. So therefore, this isn't possible. You've made me understand that science isn't within the purview of doing this, i.e. proving it's flat or spherical. So therefore, you haven't got any, and you're like, I didn't claim I had. Hey, Chocolate.
Wait a second. We've been saying that for the longest time, that it falls outside of science, and they're just catching on now? Wow.
Yeah, and telling us, well, you haven't got any scientific evidence of flat Earth. It's like, yeah, that argument only works if I'm claiming it is. I.e., we wait for somebody to say that they've got an experiment. That would be scientific vocabulary that they are employing to give validity to something that is a just so story, upon which we will ask them for their scientific evidence by way of a hypothesis being formulated, or the experiment that's been actually carried out based on that hypothesis that they hopefully know when they've used those words. I don't just go around when someone says, oh, the grass is very green today. Oh, you haven't got any science for that. It's like, well, I didn't say I had. I just pointed it out. What's the problem?
Hey, it's like on my job when somebody takes my tools, it really pisses me off. It's like they're taking our tools and they're trying to use them against us. Are they retarded?
Well, they didn't have to use the tool. So, you know, if you're going to pull someone apart based on their claim of science, understanding what is and isn't within the remit of science is useful. But obviously, you've got to wait for that person to actually claim scientific validity to what they're putting forward before you call them on not having any scientific validity. If they're not claiming science, then you don't need to call them on not having science now, do you?
Nathan,
Yeah, somebody
I know
asked
you
me the other
science.
day,
I
what
know.
do you think the Earth is flat? And I said yes, and they said, "I'll support your claim."
That's fine.
I was
Nothing
just
wrong with
responding to
asking
your
for
Nathan,
question.
Hold on. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not asking you for science.
No. Yeah, that's right.
Nathan, couldn't you still science color though? Because you do see things in nature that are different colors. So couldn't you say
Change in
color would
colour.
be a phenomenon?
A
So
change in
couldn't you
colour.
science color?
Why does the grass go from green to brown would be a phenomenon that you could study. Yes. But why is it green? No. Not at all.
Well, what? No, well, I guess you. Well, I mean, well, I think you could. You say you can call it green. You're calling it green, but you can also ask the question, why is it green? I mean, why is it green and not another color?
Is green
Because
something
it could be a
happening then?
different
So
color.
a phenomenon is something happening, an occurrence. Is green something happening? Something being green isn't a phenomenon.
Good morning,
I'm sorry.
guys. Good morning, Chocolate.
Well, I mean, because we know the cause of the color, though. It's the spectrum, or it's the I forget the term of it, but it's the nature of light that's causing the color. Because you can actually, even within well, I don't know. I think you could. I just have to figure it out, but I think you probably could figure out,
Yeah,
why is that green?
I'm sure I remember being taught that the reason why leaves were green on a tree, for instance, they do know. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's the absorption. They say it absorbs certain wavelengths of light and therefore reflects others, and the ones that are reflected are the ones that you see. Yeah, fascinating stuff. It's not a phenomenon, though. You could say the process of the growth by way of photosynthesis. You could study that and call it science. That's something happening, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more of a what is question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I know that you don't need science to prove the Earth is flat. All you need is two straight lines and get an angle.
Okay. Check out those videos if you haven't seen them already. It's called, or they are called, The Tangent Proves Earth is Flat, or some variant of that. The several videos are released maybe within the last week or so. Check them out. 10th Man's presentations have been polished up over a significant period of time now, and they're right on target. And better still, the one occasion it was actually done during debate, so someone was there challenging it, which was great. Furthermore, they were saying the sextant proves it's a globe, which was comical.
Entirely comical. I've searched far and wide
Listen,
on math.
I don't know about you guys, but I think you're all talking shit because my boy Big Mike, aka Vsauce, says that it is a three-dimensional spheroid. However, I don't know that, and it has not been proven because science doesn't prove anything. So disregard my whole channel talking about how science proves things, and please don't worry about that. Thanks.
Yeah,
Chocolate, did he drink any of that Vsauce? Is that what caused it?
yeah, but I see your point, Chocolate. When you've got people called Simon Dan, all right, or Professor Dave, well, why? Well, they've cottoned on to the same thing that we fight against. They've realised that there's a magic trick that can be employed, and the employment of the words of science lend credence to your assertions. That's all it is. It's a fairly basic magic trick. Abracadabra is the same as science. Abracadabra, so you listen while your hands are doing something that nobody's noticing. Well, science, you say? What, empirical? No, just so stories. Pseudoscience if they haven't put it through the method, which they never have. But they'll use the words, and they'll even give themselves the names of science to lend validity to what they say.
Yeah, abracadabra is like science. Presto changeo, that's like gravity. They got all the magic words. They just repeat. Hope it works out for the best.
I'm sorry. I have to keep coming back on this thing of color because you could technically say color is a phenomenon because you could go out into a field and see the same type of flower, but it's different colors, and you can ask the question, why is that? So you have one flower is one color, another flower is a different color. Out in nature, and you could science and figure out the cause of the different colors. You could go into the spectrum of light, and you could go into maybe what's going on inside the pigment of the flower to determine the different colors. So I think color could be science. I'm sorry, can't get away from it.
If you find an
I mean,
occurrence, you've got a phenomenon, you've got a dependent variable. Well, it's got to vary for it to be a dependent variable. The phenomena, dv, well, the v bit is varying, right? So if it's not going to vary, then you've got nothing to study in science.
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
I
there's
think you're
certain
right.
elements of biological science. You can vary things in biological science to determine things.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
yeah, technically you could do that.
I agree. And observing it occurring in nature, it's not a stretch. I don't disagree with you, Paul. You could eventually find something to do with colour and put it through the scientific method. I'm in no doubt that's the case.
Well, and even like asparagus, you can get those flat colored asparagus, and then you get the green asparagus. There's same thing, but it's two different colors. So yeah, okay.
Right on.
So can we science why cauliflower looks like white fake broccoli? That's why I don't eat freaking cauliflower because it looks disgusting.
Actually, I could take a little bit of offence to that. 14% cauliflower.
You identify as a vegetable too. Nice.
Cauliflower is green broccoli, Chocolate.
What?
I think this has descended too far into farce already. Let's just leave that.
Yeah. Anyway, anybody found the address for the horizon or something?
Yeah, you missed out on housekeeping. We covered the physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve. We also covered our lack thereof, just basically debunking everything.
Oh man. So you mean I can't put 1.225 times the square root of the observer's height in feet in my GPS and find the horizon? Is that what you're saying?
Nah. You could, of course, transpose any photograph or image that you're viewing with your own eyes into a mathematical construct of orthographic view where suddenly you can see the side of your own head from several thousand miles, 90 degrees to your location, and the target at, again, 90 degrees to your location, so that you can draw a straight line between the two, ignore all aspects of perspective, and then claim that anything that's at the horizon or a limitation to your view being obscured by a limited viewing angle is actually going behind an Earth curve reified edge in this Muppet Vision construct that you've derived from the view that you see with perspective. You can do that. Obviously, then the geometric horizon you're describing only exists in the maths.
Yeah, I think curvature, or the lack thereof, is the single, simplest, most devastating proof against the globe that destroys the R and therefore destroys everything that comes with the globe.
Yeah, I'm glad you added the bit about it destroying R onto the end, because for several years, people have been able to demonstrate that we, quote, see too far, and that just plays into their argument until you peg them down on what they're actually got as their original assertion, Earth, a sphere, radius 3959. Yes, not a straw man, by the way. Anyway, once you've got them pegged on their actual begging the question fallacy within a logical consistency argument, you can then take away their R from them, which means that they can't beg the question anymore. They haven't got a reasonable justification to say, we already know it's a sphere, therefore I'm going to assume this R.
And are they no longer trust?
Yeah, stop saying that. As much as it used to annoy certain individuals, it's like I used to say, in R you trust, because they automatically assumed R and just said it was justifiable to beg the question. We got them to admit it. Mick West is like, yeah, I am assuming R. Well, then you're begging the question, that's a logical fallacy. That should be the end of the argument. But so it continued because, well, we're allowed to assume our outcome because we're begging the question here. Of course, that's why we're allowed to beg the question, because we're begging the question. Obviously, we already know our outcome. We already know we're on a sphere, so every example we make from here on in will still have Earth a sphere radius 3959 at the heart of the argument, presupposed. So then you take that presupposition, rip it to shreds within their formulation of that begging the question fallacy, force them to assume it's a sphere and show them how it isn't, debunking their R and everything that sits revolving around it, no metaphor intended. Hello, father of a stolen child?
Hey, how you doing?
Very well, we were just talking about you.
Speak of the devil.
Indeed. We were talking about you yesterday as well, but because we were also talking about Brian Mullen, the context of what was being talked about in reference to you made sense in reference to Brian Mullen, so I just left it in and didn't draw attention to the slight context deviation that I'd engineered in to the edit. But it didn't matter, it didn't change what was happening, but you know what I mean. You weren't here. 10th was pointing out how measurements are very important to you based on your job that you recently departed from, and based on needing and requiring and understanding that we had measurements of Earth a sphere, you were comfortable in the knowledge and understanding that Earth was a sphere. And upon having those removed from any capability of being measured at all, you became a flat earther.
Yeah, and then I started like telling everybody at work about, it's like, did you know we couldn't measure curvature? And then they sent me to the shrink, and then they fired me.
Are you still sorted though? Because obviously you're taking part in the show. Are you slowly sinking into poverty and meanwhile on the show chatting away about it?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's not good.
Oh, I'm sorry I laughed. It sounded funny when you said it.
It was a crap job anyway. If I'd lose it for asking questions, piss on it.
Sure, but presumably you are going to make moves to sort that out in the future. You're not just going to, with the sounds in the background we can all hear. You are going to get on that, right?
Well, I still have a career, I mean, it's not like they took away all my training and education. So, I can still get work. It's just steady work I can't get.
That's what I wanted to hear. You're making ends meet is all I want to know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'll always get by. I'm a survivor.
Excellent. That's what we need to hear. Yeah, questioning the rhetoric will have you sent to the shrink. And it's not like the shrink will understand your modus tollens formulation, right? Is that
No,
something you mind?
they thought that was a modus ponens for me being crazy.
Do you mind talking about this? The interactions with the psychologist, psychiatrist, which one would it be? Are they the same thing? I don't know.
It was odd. You know, like he never cracked a smile, never moved his glasses, just kept on looking at me over the rim of them.
Did he ask you anything pertinent?
He absolutely did not care what the shape of the earth was. He just wanted to know what my problem was.
But well, now I want to know what your problem was. What was your problem?
Did he give a diagnosis?
I wanted to know what the shape of the earth was. You know, like I thought it was interesting that we didn't, couldn't measure curvature. That was huge to me. And he absolutely did not care about that. He knew Earth was a sphere because reasons, I guess. I don't know.
He knew because he knew.
Yeah, he knew because he knew.
I see. Fascinating stuff. Thanks for sharing.
Meanwhile, I'm at work freaking debating my supervisors, co-workers. Everybody knows. Like, it's crazy, man.
The last real job I had, they all knew. The only time I actually got into trouble was when I did a vlog in my uniform. And they were like, you can't do this. I was like, fair enough, I'll take it down. I understand. But other than that, I didn't get in any trouble. People would occasionally, what's the word? Behave like they behave here. But not in any really malicious or vicious way.
Interesting that they're called higher education, learning centers, universities, etc. And then when you play along with their game and ask questions, even stupid ones, they're okay. But the minute you challenge them on this one, you're marked, and there's a timestamp on you if you keep it up.
They should be called learning what we want you to learn centers.
Yeah, it's a little long. Can you shorten that, Chocolate, please?
Yeah, brainwashing center.
Perfect.
But I don't know if anybody else echoes this sentiment, but on the few occasions it has bled into my normal life, if you want to call it that, I've felt like I am suddenly part of a minority group. While I joke about being 5% Italian, etc., etc., I've been in several circumstances which I could consider myself as a minority, especially when growing up. So I grew up in a 99% Muslim community. So I was one of very, very few white people in that particular community. And not once did I feel like I was in the minority or that made me in any way different to the Muslim community that I was surrounded by. There wasn't any feeling like suddenly I was going to be persecuted in any way. I can't think of any. I mean, I was robbed a couple of times, but they were bad people. They weren't like, it wasn't, I wouldn't say because I was white. It wasn't racially motivated. It was just I was there with a nice set of trainers and there was bad people around who happened to be amongst the majority of the people that were there, therefore were Muslim. But that doesn't in any way mean that I felt I was persecuted because I wasn't a Muslim and that's why I was robbed. So even in extreme circumstances, back when I was a kid growing up in Birmingham, I never once felt like I was actually part of a minority, even though I very much was. Now you fast forward a few decades, and you end up here, and you actually feel like you're a minority. I've discussed this with Anthony a couple of times, and it's why I've got a reasonable understanding of what protected groups are now, because of those discussions with Anthony and him explaining it all to me in terms of where it lies, in terms of why, when Brian brought up yesterday, we can be societally acceptable to persecute us. It's acceptable at a societal level. Why? Well, because we don't fit into a nicely protected category. So yeah. Who? They're what group? Let's just have a flick here. Nah, they're not a protected group. Yeah, then you can knock yourself out. Go ahead, persecute them all you like. So you think, oh right, okay. Well, I've never felt like this in my life before. Having to tell people that I've got a certain viewpoint, and upon telling them, having them look at you in a way that makes you feel like a second-class citizen. That's certainly not something I've experienced up until now, even, as I say, when I was actually in a minority group.
Yeah, that is a little weird, right? It's like, and me being a minority in a minority group, it's even funny.
Do you
That's how
think? Do you
great.
think
Friend
there'll
of
come a
mine,
day? Sorry, go ahead, Ram.
I remember a friend of mine specifically warning me about who I should be very careful about who I talk about this to because of, how could be treated by other people because of it.
I remember being told that too, and I was just like, "Are you serious? Did you forget who you're talking to? Do I ever? Am I the type that tries to be careful about what I'm talking about? Hell, fucking no. Sorry about the curse.
Chocolate, I didn't know you was Japanese.
I was Japanese. Where you got that
Yeah, I
from?
didn't know you were Japanese. I just looked at your picture. I was like, wow, he's Japanese.
All right, yeah. It could be that too.
Yeah, I think you need to get out more.
This is actually a indicator of something else that most people probably don't think about, but the worship at the altar of science. Everybody does it. Not one, if you think about it, that's the one thing that can cut across every religion, every socioeconomic system, whatever it may be. Science is the thing that cuts through it. So if you don't believe with what the mainstream science, quote unquote, says, you're not in the religion that we are in. So you're excluded or pushed out or ostracized. And that would fall in any category, whether you question vaccines, whether you question the shape of the earth, whether you question anything that's not in the mainstream narrative or the main scientific narrative. So
In fact,
it is a
in
religion
fact,
in that itself.
yeah, in fact, it's illogical for you not to. That's the mainstream attitude.
Wouldn't then science be the one world religion that they warned us about?
No,
That's what I
no,
think.
no, no,
No,
no, no.
I don't
science.
think it's is.
No, no,
I
no.
think that's what.
That might be an umbrella for heliocentrism. The one world religion is heliocentrism. The notion that we're on a sphere is the one world religion. What are we talking about when we talk about Earth being a sphere? We're talking about the sun being at the centre of our world and us rotating around it. That's a sky religion. Let's tell it like it is. Heliocentrism is the one world religion.
And for those that say it's not a religion, who's Helios again?
Helios is a sun god, and I've been saying that for the longest time, that the one world order or new one world religion is the heliocentrism.
Yeah, putting the centre of your world at the point that the sun is stationary in your frame of reference in the solar system and having you move around it is a fundamental change to how you perceive the world and is a description merely of the movement of the lights in the sky and telling you what those lights in the sky are. Now, it's easy to reconcile the religious aspects of it when you tell a child or a lion cub that they're the spirits of lions long gone. And you go, all right, that's beautiful. I understand that you're just giving me that notion for whatever metaphorical reason you're trying to imply. It's easy to reconcile that. But when you tell people the story with mechanics of mathematics associated with the lights, the same lights in the sky, which you're not visiting and you don't know what they are, all you've got is the same exact thing. A description from somebody who wants to keep you under control about what the lights in the sky are and how that affects your life directly. That's all it is. Now, it doesn't matter if they're angels or demons or planets or lions. All you've got is a description of the movements of the sky that very literally controls the mind's eye of people who are told it. That's all this is about. It's just a religion.
Well, and there's even the priests themselves will say it, so to speak. They'll say you're star stuff. You're made from the stars. You're the same as those things in the sky. It's the same idea. You're the gods incarnate, so to speak. You're the stars incarnate. That's basically the idea. So it's so funny that you're right. I
That's
agree with
correct.
you.
So that's part of the story of the cycle of stars. So as they produce the heavier and heavier metals, they might burn fast and bright and quick, but eventually they collapse in upon themselves and then explode out in dramatic fashion spreading those metals, those elements, out into the universe to eventually come together by ways of gravitational accretion and then form the ground beneath your feet, which then, through magical slime being hit by lightning, form life. And from that elemental soup forming life, you eventually come to pass. Therefore, you are very literally the cousins of rocks. That is their story. So while we all joke and go, oh, rocks are cousins, what a joke. No, just part of their story, based on a logical extrapolation by Michel Thaler from the hearts of dying stars producing the elemental consistency of what we are made of. Therefore, rocks are our cousins. That's the logic. Also part of their rhetoric.
So there's a quote by Edwin Hubble, which is, and I posted it in Master B if you want to pull it up.
Sure.
But it's kind of funny when you read this, and you could hear the panic in the words as they say. Well, I'll read it out now. The quote is, "The assumption of uniformity has much to be said in its heliocentrism vast universe theory favor, but we would not expect to find a distribution in which the density increases with distance symmetrically in all directions. Such a condition would imply that we occupy a unique position in the universe, analogous in a sense to the ancient conception of a central Earth. The hypothesis cannot be disproved, but it is unwelcome and would be accepted only as a last resort in order to save the phenomena. Therefore, we disregard this possibility and consider the alternative, namely, a distribution which thins out with distance. The unwelcome supposition of a favored location must be avoided at all costs." End quote.
Edwin Hubble is talking about the cosmic microwave background radiation and the conclusion that we are at the centre of it. It's emanating out from us. We're the central point. Mm-hmm. That's the problem that they don't want. And what's the words he uses? Undesirable? Unwelcome?
The unwelcome supposition of a favored location must be avoided at all costs.
No. Solar system wise, the sun is at the favoured position in that particular system. The sun is at the centre of that. We move around it. We're just merely a speck of dust with gas clinging to us, hurtling at ridiculous speeds in violation of the second law of thermodynamics. There's nothing to see here. We're not special. That's what he's saying. Very undesirable to say that we're in a position where we actually are fundamentally it. We're at the centre of whatever this world is. And the sky, with their descriptions of millions of light years, and it expanding out into this cosmic background microwave radiation that he's describing being vast distances, only works when they're in this assumption of a heliocentric world with the distances that they imply. They haven't got a clue what the sky is. Looking at these lights going into the distance as they describe them, they don't know what they are. They certainly don't have any ascribable values to give them distances to say that it's 63 billion years ago or whatever they say it is. That's absolute crock of crap that they've made up based on derivations of our and heliocentric systems with their religious sun at the centre of your world when you perceive yourself to be on a rock flying around the sun in that religious viewpoint. We're not. It's nonsense. The distances are irrelevant. The CMB doesn't demonstrate anything. They don't know what it is. Certainly doesn't either, in my opinion, give us our central location at the universe's centre, because there's no such thing. There's the lights in the sky and there's what you can see from your position on the ground. Does that tell you about where you are in the world and how far back in the future you can see as they assert with this nonsense? No, it does not. But that religious belief will have you believe that it does. And that's all it is. Them telling you that the lions in the sky are the souls of past lions.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Nathan.
I don't see how it doesn't just say, okay, this is where the Big Bang started. It started right here at our sun. Like, I don't see what his major problem is at that, right?
He's scared. Read the words, man. This favored position must be avoided at all costs.
Why? Why? Because we have to be meaningless and insignificant?
No,
is that
pretty
the only
much.
reason? What kind of a reason?
Arwin, me just try once more. Because in the heliocentric system, where he's talking about the distance to the CMB measured in his assumptions, he's got a sun-centric system in mind. Sun-centric in the solar system, great attractor at the centre of that system. We're very much not at the centre of anything. We're at a point in the Milky Way, right? Moving around the great attractor. That's what we are in the heliocentric world. You are here on a map. Well, no.
Well, maybe that was just a faulty assumption. Maybe we are actually very close within the presupposition of everything at the center of where the Big Bang all started. What is the problem? I'm serious. What is the problem within the wider way of going
the Big Bang is the problem.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Problem is your introduction of Lemaitre's Big Bang nonsense from less than 100 years ago doesn't in any way change that Chocolate's point is that this statement is his fear of what the CMB shows, us at the centre, based on what they're measuring. Now, at the centre of what? I don't know. I don't think it actually demonstrates anything. But their extrapolation can only draw them to one conclusion. It's not that you are here on a map, moving around the sun, moving around the Milky Way, moving around the Great Attractor. That is not the case. We are at the centre as far as this demonstrates. And he's saying that position, which is what it shows, must be avoided at all costs. Because as far as the system, the model, is concerned, we most certainly aren't at the centre of anything. Hope that's clear.
Well, that is just an arbitrary position they want to take to make us insignificant for emotional reasons. There is no technical necessity to avoid it whatsoever. It's complete bullshit.
Yeah, nobody's disagreeing with that. Yeah, let's just agree with Alwyn. If that's your point, then nobody's going to disagree with that. That's correct. Yes. And if you want to take the extrapolations of how it controls you and your life, then yeah, it makes you an insignificant speck of dust in an ever-expanding soup of nothingness, Alwyn. Yes.
That wasn't my point, though. But yeah, you can never get my point because I'm always being interrupted here.
Arwen, you're right today, man.
There is no
It's
need.
rejecting.
So now I don't.
Well, I'd like to say something.
Do I need to explain it or not?
That's a sleeping warrior position.
Am I gonna
I would like
be
to
able
hear
to
the rest of
explain this or
Arwen's
not?
statement.
Go ahead, Alwyn.
Yeah, right. So it's not about their need to be insignificant. That's a personal, spiritual reason that doesn't relate to mechanics in any form whatsoever. It doesn't matter what his fears. Total bullshit. It doesn't matter what he fears. There is no mechanical necessity to avoid the point that we, with our presumed galactic place with Earth and the Sun, are just so happen to be at the center where the Big Bang all started in this time period of eternity. Why not? What would it matter? Technically, nothing.
You know why it matters?
It matters nothing.
Well, it would.
You know what it does matter? What did he call it? Not just a location, a favored location. Who do you think it's favored by? Who do you think he means? What do you think he means by that?
That's just political bias. Political bias against, what is it called again? Geocentrism. That's it. That's the only thing. That's the only thing.
I was wondering about that too, Chocolate, and I think the favoritism is favored by the universe itself, favored by the space that we're in.
Well, here's the thing. Let's think about what favored means.
He meant
Hold on a second.
when he wrote
Hold
the
on.
quote.
There's significant.
Why are you putting weight on that thing that he said? Why are you making the weight of his point bigger than it needs to be? It's total bullshit.
Well,
It doesn't mean anything.
Because this is the same
Hold on
clown
a second.
that they put a supposed telescope in a second law of thermodynamics violation and named it after him.
Well, that's
we'll get
very
to the
nice.
Okay, everyone calm down.
Hold on,
Hello,
bro.
hello,
What- you
hello,
need- you
hello,
might need to
hello,
calm
hello,
down, bro.
hello,
It's a
hello,
presupposition
hello.
engineer.
20 more
Good.
times, Arwyn. Maybe just cause total chaos for the next 10 minutes. Thank you. Yes, we'll get to Sophia Hubble nonsense later. Paul, go ahead.
The thing about a favored position, so to speak, favor implies purpose or intent, right? Well, the problem, they have a problem with that, because if you have a purpose and intent to your life or the things that are, that might imply that there's a way you should live and act. So there's an implication to remove any kind of purpose and any kind of meaning, because once you remove that, then you can do anything you want. So really it comes down to that what they're after is they don't want God to make them accountable for who they are and what they do.
Yeah, it's called
That's it.
nihilism. What the heliocentric system leaves you with is nihilism.
Well, I don't
He
think,
inserted
I don't think, hang on,
He inserted it.
Alan, hello.
Go ahead, Brian.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Nathan. I tried to say something 2 or 3 times. I didn't get a chance because Arwen overspoke
go ahead,
3
Brian.
times. While everyone was,
Okay, bye.
Well, that's what
Arwen,
happened,
please. Arwen, please don't just send this show into chaos. Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Nathan. Well, it's not even that. What I was going to say, it started off with what Paul was saying, that it suddenly points to a purpose, right? So that means we would have a purpose for being in the center. But it's more than that. They don't want the world believing that they might have a purpose. So it's not just their own fear of them having a purpose. It's the fear that the world might view itself as having a purpose. That's what they're really scared of. Because then they don't have control of anything. Because who are they then?
Exactly.
And I think it's the suggestion of a creator as well that is scary as hell for them as well, because it's inevitable.
Yeah, it was scary for me when I first came to this subject. I braced against that for the longest period.
Well, it seems scary. Like, and maybe it's designed that way. Maybe that's an unintended consequence. Maybe it's on purpose. But I mean, when I thought of this place as created, I mean, there's sometimes where I think about Attack on Titan. I'm just like, what the fuck is really going on out there? Like, who is this creator? Like, could I wake up tomorrow and see like a big ass face in the sky? Like, these things are very scary.
All chocolate. If I'm, all chocolate did was read a claim made by Edwin Hubble. Chocolate wasn't making the claim. Why did that get turned around as to chocolate making a claim? All chocolate did was read in context what that Mr. Hubble said. And it speaks for itself.
Well, if it's any consolation to the heliocentrists, the map they made of the cosmic microwave background is void because it's based on a celestial sphere. So all of that is moot.
Did you just say, what did you say, celestial? And you also said, what did he say? Never mind.
He said celestial sphere, the imaginary position of the stars.
If it's any constellation.
Very good.
That's what it was.
Very good. Eli, you're getting sharp here with the puns.
And then he also said void, vacuum.
Anyway. You're contagious, Stefan.
I remember Carl Sagan on the Johnny Carson show. This is the guy Neil deGrasse Tyson tells a story about. Neil deGrasse Tyson says he was a young kid and he met Carl Sagan and he had traveled to a certain place and I guess it was getting late and he was going to miss the transportation back, and Carl Sagan invited Neil deGrasse Tyson to come and stay with his family because he saw in Neil deGrasse Tyson the kind of same fantasy or excitement about the cosmos as he had a show back then. So Neil deGrasse Tyson once talked about how Carl Sagan influenced his life. Now, I remember Carl Sagan on Johnny Carson's show sitting there, and Johnny Carson's just leaning over and asking them pertinent questions. And Carl Sagan goes into this long description of how we're so insignificant, that we're nothing, that we have no purpose. We're on the speck, on a bigger speck in this bigger thing, and it just made it seem, after you listened to him, you gave up hope. You didn't want to live anymore. I mean, it was so depressing. It was like, this is exactly what Chocolate's quote is trying to say here in the reverse. They want you to think you are an accidental cosmic dust particle, that you have no purpose, no meaning. And so this is a way to get you away from looking up and saying, I know you're up there. Who are you? I want to know you. They don't want that prayer going out. Because God will answer that prayer if you do it.
Yeah, that's why he calls it the unwelcome supposition. Right? It's unwelcome. We don't even want this supposition. We don't even. And what do we usually? What do we sometimes call a supposition? A hypothesis.
Was Hubble
So
not a
we
Christian
observe
man
this, but we have
in
to
his
avoid it at
lifetime?
all costs. Sorry, man.
Was Hubble a Christian man during his lifetime?
Who knows?
That term is
Curious.
overused these days. It doesn't mean what you think it means, as the movie line says.
I agree.
If he was or wasn't, he's a proponent of heliocentrism. It's not like Reverend John Michelle Cavendish and C.V. Boyes, you know. It's not like...
Well, how about Lemaitre? You mentioned Lemaitre. He's supposed to...
Exactly. You can come up with all sorts of people who've got positions within the church that have come up with heliocentric rhetoric. You know, again, I plug it, go and see Johnny Cerrucci interview with myself in terms of the road to Rome that is the heliocentric deception in terms of its documented history. But so what, you know, them being ascribed to some particular group when they're punting heliocentrism or trying to figure a get around for something that doesn't quite work, or apologise for the fact that their observations seem to put them at a central position that has to be avoided at all costs. It's like, do I care who his tailor is? Not really.
Well, the tailor might be intertwined.
That knew was coming.
So what?
Well, what I
You
find...
didn't get that one, huh?
Well done.
No,
Brian.
very good.
Very good, very good. Very good. Brian, go ahead.
Thank you, Nathan. What I find is pretty strange is, not so much strange, but very telling, is that I can only take what he said by his words. That is what the quote that Chocolate read out. And I remember listening to that several times live. Not live, but in audio. And the thing about it is he only got to the point, he basically stating that they got to the point, going by what he said, where it looked like they were in the center of everything. Now, they had never got anywhere near it being like, let's just say, near it being a geocentric flat plane that's enclosed. They never got anywhere near that. But the first mention of anything that was in that direction caused them sleepless nights straight away. So I find that very telling. It's like, it's the terror that they felt purely by just maybe being in being a geocentric center within their fantasy alone was major troubling for them.
Yeah, they don't want to be geocentric. They don't want us at the center. They don't want the sun moving around us. That's very, very anti-heliocentric now, isn't it? Given that heliocentric would mean we're moving around the sun rather than it moving around us. And that's the awful truth that they'd have to draw, but it's the most avoidable truth possible according to Hubble, right?
Yeah, that's the one they really need to avoid. I think maybe they could. Maybe they. Sorry, go on.
He injected it. Yeah, we're all talking about something that Hubble injected. His fear. Where's the mechanical necessity of that being avoided? It's not a point. He just made it a point, and you're discussing it for 15 minutes straight. Something that he said.
Yeah, I purposely did that, Arwen. You all right with that?
How dare you,
What's
Chocolate?
wrong
So
with
it's
you, bro?
completely superfluous then. It's not a consequence
What would
mechanically
you
on
like us to
anything.
talk about? What you want to talk about? What would you like to talk about?
Why would we not talk about that quote?
Like,
when
what the
it's
hell?
very
Yeah,
powerful?
Arwin.
Sorry, Chocolate.
That's very suspicious. Why wouldn't we talk about it, Arwin? Get him!
I think I know what Arwen is doing. Arwen is readdressing what Hubble said and said, look, I could do a better job and not say what he said because I could take the personal side out and because I look at it from a mechanical point of view. But that's not why Chocolate read it. Chocolate read it because that's what the guy said.
Yeah, but Arwin's saying it's no issue. We can just mechanically be at the centre. What's the problem? That's Arwin's point. And you go, okay,
Exactly.
yeah, that's fine. If you don't have a worldview that's in opposition to, then it's going to cause you sleepless nights. All well and good for us to say, yeah, so what? We're geocentric. Because we're not tied to that.
But Nathan, we got that. But that's not what the man said. And what Chocolate did was just quote what the man said. Now, you can't go and say, well, he didn't say that, and I could say it better because I could do it mechanically better. But it's not, the topic is what the man said, not what Arwen has a better argument for it.
No, I appreciate that.
If Arwen was the guy's coach, maybe he would have said it better.
Sure, but Arwin's positioning it towards the rational audience members like us, who are flat earthers, and he's saying, this is really inconsequential. It's not a problem because unless you think the world's folded up into a sphere beneath your feet and you have actually got sky vacuums and stuff at vast distances and us moving around the sun, this really isn't a problem. That's Arwin's point, and I agree completely.
Exactly.
Chocolate saying, appealing to a totally different side of the audience, I might add, hey, fundies, you do realise that one of your priests has made an observation that puts you at the centre and it's a big problem for him. Not a problem for us, Arwin's point.
Exactly my point. I'm pointing out irony, like I always do. So this is not it's not new.
I'm happy with it, Chocolate.
But whatever.
Okay, no, but I'm fine with that. But yeah, to me, it's just another chronic, systematic liar feeling the flames of God in the distance. That's all. It doesn't have mechanical.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you there, man. I'm just pointing it out. And then the follow-up irony is that they put a freaking telescope in a second law of thermodynamics violation and named it after this guy. It's like, are you serious?
I would have to disagree with you though, Arwen, because the mechanics would change exponentially if they were if in their model they were at the center of everything.
No, I don't think he doesn't get that, Brian. Hold on.
No, not really.
Hold on. I don't think he doesn't get that there's a fundamental difference between geocentric and heliocentric. I don't think that's beyond his. I don't think that's been lost on him, Brian.
Yeah, but it's not.
I'm not talking about that though. Not talking about what is central, sun or earth within, because that is more about motion forces and cycles. I'm talking about the entire universe, right? The background radiation at which we seem to be at the center. Why would that be a problem? Why would it have always had to be exactly like that? It could have just happened to maneuver in there in the last billion years or whatever, you know? Like, why does it matter?
Because, Arwen, that takes a lot of things away. Because if we were at the center, are we still 8.03 light minutes from the sun? There's a load of things that change in their model if we're geocentric in their model. Because it's not the model anymore. It's going to have to go back to an older version of their model. If we were on a geocentric globe in a massive vacuum universe, then how many things change within our model? How much stuff would they be wrong about? Loads of stuff.
Why are you sliding geocentrism back in there again?
Because
I was only talking about the background radiation. That doesn't make the Earth central.
Because he was speaking about a geocentric situation.
Right, his political fears of the opponent. Yeah.
No, his fears of a completely different model.
Okay.
With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Excuse me. However, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, or joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day! To be at the center of the Big Bang galaxy. I don't see it.
Because you
really
can't, you can't.
Oh,
because
that
you
don't even
can't-
make sense.
Because you can't have something come from zero.
Oh, but that's more about the mechanics of the Big Bang and not our presupposed position within it. Okay?
No,
No,
because
our-
then. Go on, Ted. Go on.
Yeah, sorry?
No, it's all of the complexities of every living thing on Earth has a separate code for that thing and only for that thing, separate of another thing. It's called DNA. That's information. You can't have information from zero. It's over for the Big Bang. Stop fighting for it.
Dude, I can, in my mind, unify the Big Bang and Creator. Okay? It
In
makes
my
no
mind,
mechanical
You're missing-
sense,
you're
though.
missing
It
a
makes no
vital point,
mechanical
though,
sense, but I can easily do that, right?
Yeah, and there's unicorns in Narnia in your mind as well.
Yeah, but you're
Fine,
missing a vital.
whatever.
You're missing a vital point, Arwen. Right? They don't have an origin point or proven cause for their Big Bang. But if the Big Bang supposedly happened at the center and they're at the center, then they have no excuses about this Big Bang that happened billions of years ago in some distant place that didn't exist in the first place. You know, then they're like, well, show us where the Big Bang happened here then. They don't have any. They're forced to prove something that they've been able to get away with not proving, just theorizing. That's the difference.
I don't
Well,
see
our-
it. I
well,
don't
Arwen-
see it.
No, Arwen, let me give you an example. And of course, this is a flawed example because you got to have the parts in the first place. So, but this, even with this, it's stupid. You dismantle a Boeing 747 on a big tarmac, every screw, every washer, every rivet, every rubber lining, everything is in a separate position. And you walk around, it covers a huge expanse. Every single piece of that plane was dismantled. Now, you got the stuff already, which in the Big Bang wasn't at all there. Now you're just waiting for some kind of tornado to come along and put that whole thing together by chance. Is that ever going to happen?
How does that relate? How does that relate? I don't see how that relates to the supposed complication that the Earth might happen to be right now at the center of where the Big Bang presupposedly happened. I don't see how that relates at
try.
all.
Let me try.
The
Hold on,
mechanics
Ben,
of the
hold on.
Big Bang itself is ridiculous. Yes, I know. But if we're going to presuppose that, then why not be at the center? I don't see the objection.
Okay, so what 10th is trying to detail is functional sequence specified complexity as per the description of sand dunes versus a complex sand castle. When the example's DNA, you're talking orders of magnitude more complicated when you're talking about the DNA versus a sandcastle. And what he's asking you is, if you went out to the desert, how many millennia would you have to hang around those sand dunes for a sandcastle to form out of nothing? The answer is never. It's never going to happen.
But they can claim that it happened.
Well, that's
because
fine.
Hang on 1 second. They can claim that it happened, and it happened at such that, but they don't have to come up with actual solid evidence for it, because it happened in a place they're not sure of, and a long time ago. So it's all just theoretical, and it's accepted. But if you put them geocentric, that means they're in there you are, you're in the place that it happened. So now you can tell us and prove how it all happened. And they can't. Sorry.
Oh, why not?
They can't. They can't. But how are they going to prove the Big Bang happened here? How are they going to prove that? Well, and still keep the same story. They're not. That's the point.
Why not? They did it with the Earth. They did it with Athea. They can make up whatever bullshit story they like. I don't see the problem here.
They have to prove it. They
have to prove Athea hit the moon.
If you leave me speak,
I'm rebutting you.
They're in a position, right, at present, where this Big Bang happened somewhere else that they can't get to, right? So they're not in a position of they're not being asked, okay, show us this evidence, prove it. Whereas on the globe, Earth in the center of it, as the geocentric center of it all. Oh, that's where it all started. It all exploded out from here. So you'll be able to show us all the evidence here, and that they can't do that. And if they can, it means it will completely, in some way, make up a story. It's going to completely change the story they already have.
I don't think so.
Since
They can
quotes tend
just
to be
do it
triggering,
on the
always.
fly. They did it with the moon, and they can do it with this. The first evidence would. Can I finish? Can I rebut, please? Can I rebut, please? Yeah? Without interruption? Yeah. They can just say, look, the radiation is all emanating from this point. That's the data we have. So we're assuming we're now at the center. Doesn't mean that we were always at the center. Doesn't mean we're always going to be at the center. What we just happen to be now. We still don't know how it happened, but we seem to be at the center because the background radiation all centers around this point. There you go.
So then, why does he say that this favored position, this unwanted favored position, must be avoided at all costs?
Because
what is
that's
the point of him
personal.
saying that?
That's personal. That's because he wants to be insignificant and completely unimportant. That's what he wants. That's a religious reason. That's not a mechanical reason.
Yeah, it is. Let's just.
But who said it was supposed to be
Stop.
mechanical?
Stop. Can I just put a hat on this finally? It's a fundamental change, though, isn't it, Arwin? You can't deny that changing from geocentric to heliocentric or vice versa is a fundamental change in the mechanics of the model. That's the point that's being made, and you're saying, no, it's not a fundamental change in the mechanics, because I can just change the mechanics in the story in terms of how it incorporates this particular aspect that's incongruent with the actual description of heliocentrism. Well, you're saying I can just incorporate that anomaly and talk it away. You're like, yeah, but ultimately, for us to be at the centre of this microwave background radiation, that's got to involve a fundamental change. You must appreciate that is the case, because geocentric and heliocentric are different things.
No, it doesn't have anything to do with. No, can I finish? Can I actually rebut? Because I have one. If I can be uninterrupted again, please.
Can you try to calm down today?
No, this is very serious because I'm being strawman. I'm being strawman. Yes, I am. Because immediately
you came in with all the
geocentrism is a strawman. I'm not saying it has to be geocentric even to make that argument.
You're making your argument with your damn self. Are you feeling all right today, bro?
It doesn't have to be geocentric.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. No, because it's not emanating from.
So what is he saying then? What is he saying?
That the Earth could happen to be at that point. That doesn't make the Earth the center of all things forever. It just happened to be there at that moment. Doesn't make it everything geocentric. It's still assuming the Earth and the sun and everything still dwelling.
How can the Earth be going around the sun in their model with the sun at the center while the Earth is also at the center? That's two centers. You can't have two centers. You have one.
Are you saying they are measuring it up to the centimeter? Is it that central in the galaxy?
The point.
That is the point.
He didn't say that. Now you're strawmanning him.
Yeah, I didn't say any of it.
Well, that's what you are going to point at when you say geocentrism.
Come on,
no, it's not ridiculous.
God, Neil, thank you for that. After I tried to regain control. So no, not to within the centimetre. The sun in the heliocentric version that Hubble holds is 96 million or 93 million miles away from the centre of the position measured of the microwave background radiation in this non-favoured position central to us. So it's not within a centimetre. What are you talking about?
I don't know.
It's what the background radiation observations have yielded, right? Data-wise, that Earth is very likely at the center. Well, that only makes it a happenstance position. It doesn't make everything in the universe suddenly rotate around the Earth. That's geocentrism.
Come on.
Come on, everybody's constantly interrupting me.
It's because all you keep offering up is, no, it doesn't necessarily put it at a central position, this measurement of it being at a central position. All you've got to offer is to say, no, it isn't constantly, and then moan that everyone's talking through you. So you can reassert, no, it doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have to be at the centre. That's all you've given, Arwin.
It's called an argument.
Nathan,
No, it's not an argument. It's so far a baseless assertion that you're making. It doesn't necessarily. Well, no, the measurement is being described by Chocolate as having the person who's making the observation describe it as unfavourable because it puts us at the centre. And you're saying, fundamentally, I don't agree with this position that it puts us at the centre, even though the measurement is described as being putting us at the centre. Now, me, I don't care either way. I don't think it puts us anywhere. I don't think it can be ascribed or used in that way. But what the point that's being argued about is the fundamental change that must happen if this measurement is to take as read what is being implied by Hubble, which is that it puts us at the centre, as opposed to heliocentric. That would be sun at centre, not us at centre. It's fundamentally different, Arwin. I don't know why you're dragging this out.
Because those elements don't have anything to do with it.
he just wants to be right.
Not anything to do with it other than it being the main point that Hubble's concerned about, Hubble's losing sleep over, and Chocolate's highlighting. Other than it being the main point being detailed, it's got nothing to do with it, Arwin, yeah.
Nathan, can I ask you a
Constantly
question?
dragging it in there.
Please, let me ask Nathan a question. The background radiation, is that not a presupposition of something?
Well, that's the problem. It doesn't jive with the heliocentric presupposition, and that's the problem that Hubble's got. That's what's being discussed.
Okay, but just because it's a problem for the current model of his time, his assumptions about it, right? It's all assumptions anyway. It's just presupposition, right? Just because he couldn't match it and then automatically reverted back to, oh, so then let's go to the other dichotomy, geocentrism, yeah? Now that's called a straw man. It's not
No, that's what you've done, Arwin. That's not what Hubble's doing. Hubble's saying, no, that's definitely not what we're going to be doing. It's very unfavourable. You're saying that's what you can do and saying it's okay to do that. That's not what Hubble's done, and that's the point. He's saying, no, we definitely can't do that. It's so undesirable, Arwin.
Yeah, and I'm saying he wouldn't have to. He's just shitting his pants for nothing.
Oh, well, that's a wonderful point. I'm glad we dwelled on it for 20 minutes.
He would have to, because that changes absolutely everything. All the nonsense they've been spewing out is suddenly completely thrown on its head. And they're not even after getting anywhere near a flat and closed, self-automated dynamic system. We're nowhere near that yet. And they're already in a panic. It would. It changes everything for them.
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of trouble not getting mixed up in, because geocentrism and all that versus heliocentrism is mostly about solar orbits and all that. It's like the orbitals and the planets. That's really what it's mainly about. It's like what is at the center, and has to do with motion and all kinds of issues, right? I wasn't even advancing.
Arwin, don't just keep talking. Yes, that's the argument that you've just braced against for 20 minutes. Yes, that's the point that was being put to you. Thank you for summarising it after bracing against it for 20 straight minutes. Thank you. So, yeah, things would change. So, fundamentally different. Heliocentric versus geocentric. Geo being us, geo being the ground we're standing on, centric being at centre. So, all the stars moving around us, just lights moving around us. Yeah? As opposed to the lights being massive bodies of gas and rock with the sun at the centre and us moving around it. Fundamentally different, and that's the point. Hubble, because his world comprises of an outlook based on a model. So his model is his world. And because his world is the model, when he looks at something that doesn't work with the model, that's life-changing, world-changing stuff to him. Now, I get your point. That's why I'm weaving it in this way. You're saying, well, it's just a model. Doesn't mean we can't just change the model into a completely different way of looking at it, i.e. geocentric. That change is the bit that Hubble is bracing against with everything he's got. It's so unfavourable to do that. Yes, I get that. Yeah, it's just a presupposition he's holding. Yeah. But that presupposition forms his world. That's his world he's talking about. And 50% of the audience's world. And he's saying this observation of what I think is the world in a heliocentric way is fundamentally at odds with this observation of the CMB. That's what's happening. For him, not for us.
Okay, well then I retract all my statements because apparently I do not understand the full implications or even differences between heliocentrism and geocentrism, right? I
No,
apparently don't understand.
no,
And no,
that's
and
not-
this is
that's
not
not what- that's
sarcastic.
not what-
Can you
that's
please
not
not
what-
interrupt me? I'm trying to round this out.
No, because you're
Crying out
strawmanning.
loud.
You're strawmanning.
I'm literally saying I don't understand. This
I'll
is not
explain it to you
sarcasm.
very simply then. It's
Yeah.
very
Fine.
simple. It might be just a model to you, but it's not just a
God.
model. It wasn't just a model to him. It was a belief. And that's the difference. To you, it's just a model. We can change the model.
I wouldn't know
they
because
have
I
a
don't
belief.
understand the model.
Owen, don't tell him off and then cut him off. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Nathan. It wasn't just a model to him. It was his world belief. He'd have to change all the things that they thought they were right about and all the whole direction they were going, they'd have to completely change around. That was terrifying for him. His belief was being taken apart. And that was the problem. For you, it's just a model because you don't care. But he cared. That's the difference.
Has nothing to do with my argument. My argument is I don't understand.
everything to do with your
Okay, fine.
I
If
don't
you don't,
understand.
fine. Don't just babble on for the next 10 minutes to everyone about how you don't understand Darwin. It's not fair. Fine, we get it. The second time and the first time, now the third time. Thank you. We get it. Okay, if you don't understand geocentric, heliocentric difference, that's fine. Heliocentric, helios, sun, at center. That means the center of the solar system world, if you exclude the Milky Way and the Great Attractor, just our local solar system. The sun is at the center. We move around it in that model. So fundamentally, all of the movements of the stars that we perceive are caused by us rotating, and the sun's movement is caused by us moving around it. All of the seasons, everything about how our world is constructed is based on the notion that we are moving around the sun, as opposed to geocentric, stationary, non-moving, with the stars moving around us, as is indicated by the perception of Hubble when he took this observation of the CMB. Upon that observation, he's saying, this observation puts us at the middle, the centre of everything. So that doesn't comport, that doesn't work, this isn't how my model works. So this unfavourable, undesirable position that this observation puts us at, we're going to have to work our way around that somehow, because it's undesirable. Yeah? Why? Well, because his world is his model. That's the world he inhabits. Only because it's his world in his mind's eye, and the mind's eye of many people watching, doesn't make it the world we live in. That's the point. Models aren't reality. And when you find there's an issue with something you actually observe in the physical nature of the world we inhabit, and it doesn't comport, it doesn't match with your model, doesn't mean the world's changed. But if you do reify your model into the world you actually stand upon, and have a globe beneath your feet, and then something doesn't match, that's devastating. And that's what Hubble's trying to express.
Okay. Well, I don't understand how he could have come to that conclusion based only on the background radiation, when I personally, in modeling it in my mind, don't see any objection whatsoever to having that and still be heliocentric. But that's my problem. That's because apparently I don't understand it, and that's not sarcastic.
But that was him. This is you you're talking about. That's not what Hubble did.
Maybe you're more
No,
brilliant
and
than
I'm
Hubble.
saying I don't understand how we could have come to that conclusion based on this. I don't understand it.
It's like Brian said, he came to that conclusion because it destroyed his belief of the current model. And if his model isn't true, then everything goes out the window, just like Brian said, articulately.
That's just a
What
story
I'd
to
say
me.
though in Arwen's defence is I think Arwen actually would have a way around the problem that maybe Hubble didn't. So maybe Arwen can't understand why it was a problem for Hubble, because maybe Arwen would have a heliocentric answer to the problem.
Yes! Thank you!
Yeah, but you should have just said that in the first place instead of arguing with chocolate and attacking
I did.
with everyone.
I did.
Okay.
But then I was talked
Let's
over
not
by
dissect
3
it.
people
Okay.
immediately.
Hello. Let's not dissect it for the next 10 minutes, please.
He did say that, though. I remember him saying it.
Thank you, Neil.
So what was it, Howard? Man, you can't leave us hanging now.
What was what?
The explanation to the big problem.
Okay, well, my explanation would be that we just happen to be wandering with our Earth and our sun and our galaxy, and we just happen to be at the center of this background radiation. It doesn't have to make the Earth the center of all things. I don't see why that would be the conclusion of it. I just don't see that at all.
Oh yeah, but the Earth is the center, not the sun. So we can't be wandering and still be going around the center when we're being shown to be the center.
And to make it worse, these guys claim science, right? Even in the quote, he says the hypothesis of whatever he observed cannot be disproved, but it is unwelcome. Would a real scientist actually say that a hypothesis that cannot be disproved is unwelcome?
Seems kind of paradoxical, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to point out.
It's scientism, chocolate. They know if they admit to their findings, we're back to geocenter. They know that. They don't want to go there.
Wonder what kind of arguments they would have in their own little circles, right? Because some of them clearly state that they know there's some form of a creator, right? Like at the bottom of the glass, God's waiting, shit like that, right?
How about your Michio Kaku quote you put up? Why don't you read that?
Yeah, I can do that. Let's see. Where is it? So Michio Kaku writes. Oh shit, where is it? All right. So Michio Kaku, I have concluded that we are in a world made by rules created by an intelligence. Believe me, everything that we call chance today won't make sense anymore. To me, it is clear that we exist in a plan which is governed by rules that were created, shaped by a universal intelligence, and not by chance.
Wow, that's
Interesting.
That's a lot. That's a lot to say.
I know.
Yeah, but he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth, because then he goes on to talk about a string theory.
I know.
So he believes in an intelligent string? Or what is it?
Well, they call him a scientist, right?
Well, wait a minute.
Same guy who says that
Well,
nobody I know of in my field uses the scientific method. I mean, come on.
I don't know. He's kind of
Well, even string theory though doesn't necessarily rule out God, because who vibrated the strings? Did it start vibrating on their own? Did they just collide on their
Where
own?
did
Whatever
strings
you want to
come
call
from?
it.
Oh, come on. String theory. You having me on?
I'm not saying it's right,
String
Nathan.
theory
I'm
is
just saying
purely theoretical.
just the argument saying it's just it doesn't preclude. The only point I was making, it doesn't preclude the existence of God. There's two types of causes in reality. There's the material cause and the efficient cause. Like you can get into saying what's the cause. Like I just opened the dishwasher. You can get into the material cause of things, which means how my hand opened the dishwasher and the mechanics of it. But the efficient cause of it, it was me. I opened it. I made a choice to open the dishwasher. So who vibrated the strings? You know.
Get
Go
your
ahead.
own dirt.
Get your own dirt.
Yeah, but
Get your own
I
string.
think Paul has a point, because regardless of what theory you come up with, or how bizarre or outlandish it is, if you believe the whole of what you believe to be a universe and the whole of existence is based on a plan, then and a plan, and in your world, in your belief, a universal intelligence that governs it, then anything is possible, because it's all created by the universal intelligence. It's just a case of finding out how does it work?
Still needs a beginning too.
Yeah, yeah, but you have a hard time finding out if you're thinking on a globe going around the sun and all the rest of it, But if you believe that there is, if you come to the conclusion after years and years of being a pseudoscience astrophysicist guy that this is all governed by universal intelligence, then you're at step one, aren't you? Anything is possible then.
These people, Brian, these people are fools. I'll tell you what. When I was in school, they brought up the word chance. Everything happened by chance. Chance. Okay. I said, well, how's that possible? And I argued then with the intellect I had as a young boy. Now, in my further studies of how they attribute everything to chance, what they do is they make a major error here. They attribute causal power to the word chance. Now, chance is nothing. Chance is a word that describes probability. If I'm in Georgia visiting, say, a cousin or whatever, and I run into Chocolate, and I say, and Chocolate says, hey, what are the chances of us meeting here at this time today? He's not saying chance caused the meeting. He's saying, wow, I didn't expect to meet you, 10th man. That's what he's saying. It's what's the probability of me meeting you here while you're visiting your cousin? It doesn't cause anything. I was going
Be
to
careful.
Georgia.
Hold on. Be careful. At a fundamental level, yeah, it does. So, in terms of what does the double slit tell us? Well, it tells us the cause of wave function collapse. What's wave function collapse? The collapse from probability, a probability distribution, into actualization. So
I'm talking more mathematical. I'm talking more of like the odds. But let me finish. So the reason Chalk and I met in Georgia was because I was going to Georgia. And say we met at a pastry shop. I was going into a pastry shop to get a pastry. Chocolate happened to be going to a pastry shop to get a pastry as well. Because we both were doing something, we met. But we used the language of chance to say, hey, what's the chances of us meeting here? It's not a causal agent, is my point. We caused it. We were going there. But this is the way we speak.
Okay, sure. But what has, I kind of know that, but what has that got to do with what I was saying?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that their model for the longest time is based on chance. No God, no creator, no intelligence. Now, Michio Kaku is saying, well, you know what? Forget that. That don't work. There's got to be a universal intelligence. They'll call him everything now that they weren't willing to call him then, meaning the God, the intelligence. So, but they won't call him by name. They won't get on their knees and repent of their sins for him. They're just going to say the universe is God now. In fact, you're God, I'm God, the rock is God. This is pantheism. This is where they're going.
But what Michio Kaku said, though, Tent, was that there was a universal intelligence, which speaks to an overseer, a creator, a designer, an architect of it all. So, like, maybe it's a good thing for us going into the future that people, it definitely is a good thing. If you have people like Michio Kaku getting to the point of saying to himself and stating publicly, well, this can't just be all an accident.
No, that's exactly my point. The whole story got changed when Chocolate read that quote, because as we were growing up, they never said those things. But now you'd say, define what you mean. Oh, well, he's not a personal God. It's just a force. It's just an intelligent force. You don't have to do anything because there's no judgment. There's no answer. So they'll demean this hang on. They'll make room for it because chance doesn't have a chance anymore, pun intended. So they'll say, okay, it's intelligence, but it's a force. It's not a personal God. That's where they're going.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that's what Michio Kaku was saying. From what he said, intelligence means something thought about it. I mean, to have an intelligence, you have to have a knower. Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree 100%.
What I mean is they can say what they want after this, but Michio Kaku stating this is stating, well, it's not just all by accident. There seems to be a universal intelligence that governs it all. So, 1 second. So that means that this intelligence had a plan. They didn't do it for nothing. So they can say what they want. The other people outside of Michio Kaku can say what they want after that, because it makes, for me to state that an intelligence is just a force is a load of rubbish. I mean, if I was to make that argument to you, that's a load of rubbish. And intelligence is a force itself. but it is a personally directed force. You know, if you
No,
understand
I agree. I
it's not just
totally
some
agree with
random.
you.
It's not like an automated force.
No, I get it. Hey, Brian, we're on the same page here. I'm just saying that the departure from the old words of chance, Michio Kaku just threw evolution, through the Big Bang, threw everything under the bus when he said what he said in that quote. And all I said was the way they used to define chance as a causal power is no longer the case.
But maybe he didn't throw evolution underneath the bus. Now, he may have. I don't know his personal thoughts on it. But evolution could happen due to a creator if you take their heliocentric belief. The creator lit the spark, and then the creator after that kind of dealt with what happened. It's like one second, it's like a canvas. You know what I mean? It's like a canvas, like an art, like a huge big canvas the size of your kitchen wall or something, and you throw a piece of paint at it, and you see what happens, and then you create something out of that. Like an art.
That's to evolve. That's what you mean.
They could see it that way, you know.
That's my very point. They never said that before. So, of course, they're not going to go from A to B directly. They're going to go slowly to B. So now the change is there. So they're going to say, okay, well, it's an intelligence that did the evolution. Of course, they're going to take baby steps there. But the whole point is they never said that before. What they said before was there was no intelligence. It was a Big Bang. It just happened. Everything came from zero. Now they're saying
can I talk about the nature?
Zero isn't zero.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I talk about the nature of causes? See, the thing is, most causes, there's only two ways causes can occur. Either something external to the thing you're seeing, or from within the thing itself. Which means, and so that being said, like everything in the world that we experience, something external typically is the cause of it, right? So, like if I push over something and it falls down, I pushed it, so it fell. So there's external, it just didn't happen by itself. Now, the next question that has to be asked, can inanimate, non-intelligent, non-agent cause something? You know, so if it can't, that means it's something external to itself has to cause it, right? So, but if there's an intelligent agent, the cause can be within itself, which means it can choose to do something different. Choose to make something different. Like you can imagine an ever row of dominoes existing. They just exist. But would they ever fall down? You know, they've always existed, never standing there. Nothing's happening. They just stood there. Would they ever fall down? Unless an agent comes over and pushes the first domino. But what's the choice to make that change that state? Can the domino do that within itself or something external to itself? You understand the nature of what I'm trying to drive at?
I do, but it's going to be the note I round out on. So with that, I am going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premium streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video. What a lovely day!